people think in terms of their purpose, in terms of their bigger dream and, stepping into that they're going to find what it is.
Yeah.
And it's going to be this moment in
the
time.
door.
Yeah. And everything's going to be clear and they're never going to have, question themselves again or wonder or feel confused. And it's just not the way it works.
Welcome to The Way of the Muse, a podcast for women who want to create richness in every area of their lives, from business and career to lifestyle, relationships, family, purpose, and fulfillment. I'm Gigi Sage.
And I'm Makena Sage. We're a mother-daughter coaching team, and combined, we've spent over 4 decades helping people create their best and most fully expressed lives. If you're ready to step into your bigger dreams with ease, fun, and flow, you're in the right place. Let's get into the episode.
Dun, 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 dun.
Hello, hello.
Always looking for new ways to open the
that,
podcast.
right? Yeah. I could start singing when we start.
Ooh,
yeah,
that would be fun. What would you sing?
One of the songs that I used to sing. I Can't Make You Love Me by Bonnie Raitt. Yeah.
Gigi has a few soundtrack songs that mostly are very sad. I don't know why. Because it helps her feel her feelings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, welcome everyone to a new episode. We were just thinking about what personal updates or exciting updates do we have for you? Gigi, do you want to share?
Yeah. So our topic today is a dream that makes you want to get up in the morning. And so we were thinking, like, what's a dream that we're actualizing like that? And yes, we can say dun, 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 because really the book that we've been talking about for 2 years is...
we wrote the whole thing. We're just going to start over, kind of.
Yeah, we're trashing that one, starting another one. But this one is, I think it's because you had to wait until you were birthing a baby. And so she's going to birth the book at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But she is an overachiever, we know. So
yes. So it's about our journey. Gigi's mentoring me, but also just our story. And so it has this mother and daughter component. And I think it's probably just a full circle moment that I'm having a daughter. So yeah, gives me a deadline to get this thing done and get it out to you all.
A birth line. It gives you a birth line. Yeah.
There you go. Birth line. So we're very excited. So stay tuned. That's our big dream we're stepping into right now.
Yeah.
So this topic really came up because I hear this a lot from people, right? People say, I want to be doing that thing that makes me want to jump out of bed in the morning, or I, have different ideas about what I might want to do. And some of you even love what you do, but you want that bigger dream that has you, again, have that. It's kind of a cliche at this point. Like, I want to jump out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing we want to talk about, because absolutely, that's a huge part of what we help people do, is step into their bigger dreams. And there's a misconception around this. Gigi, do you want to talk a little bit about that misconception? Because the other day someone said this to me and I said, it doesn't necessarily feel 100% like that when you're doing the thing that you really, really love.
I always give the example because people say this to me all the time. Oh my gosh, aren't you exhausted when you work like that? People say that, right? And I'm like, of course I get tired, but when you're doing something that aligns with you, it's a really good kind of tiredness. And so it's the same when we're thinking about, oh my gosh, this is going to be every morning I want to get up and, jump out of bed. It's not like that really. It's that when you're doing what you love, when you find something that there's this sense of purpose and this sense of feeling like you're in alignment. And sometimes that feels really exciting, but some days it feels like, oh my gosh, like, why am I doing this again? Right.
Yeah, that's the reality I want to talk about, because it is something to look forward to. There's nothing like feeling super aligned in what you're doing. Yeah. And for most people, they're they are thinking about this as a career, like being fully aligned in their career, loving what they do. But even if it's something on the side, if you want to write a book or some kind of project or side business or whatever it might be, is we have this idea of, oh, it's going to be like, I can't wait to jump out of bed. And for most people and most days, I would say that's not necessarily the experience, but it is that more, like you always say, before you go to sleep at night, like, oh, okay, I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing. I'm on track. I'm on path. Yeah. And that's a really great, I guess that's what we would call fulfillment, right? Like really feeling filled up by what you're doing.
Filled up by what you're doing. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I just want to interject here because, even with Makena, she said to me, I think it was a few weeks ago, I think I'm really not a writer because I really don't like to sit and write. And I said,
I don't like to edit. I like to write. I hate editing.
I said, if you probably talk to anybody out there that has written, they would probably say half the time that's the way they feel. They're like, why am I doing this? It's again, but the fulfillment and the result and the end product, then you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is amazing. I mean, many times when I led workshops through my career, I would be like, oh, I don't want to do this today. I don't want to do it. And then at the end of the weekend, I would be like, oh my gosh, I love this. You remember that? I get in workshops, right? After the first 2 hours, I say, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm done with this. Yeah.
And then by the end, she's like, that was the best retreat we've ever led.
When are we scheduling the next one?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there are, too, depending on the kind of work that you want to be doing or, whatever that dream is for you, there are going to be those moments and those times where you do feel excited. You do feel in flow and lit up and inspired, but it's not going to be all day, every day. And I think that's the thing that if you're holding that sort of expectation, then when you get there, it can be kind of, you might be let down a little bit, right? Or you might be feeling like, oh, this isn't actually it because it doesn't feel the way I thought it would feel. And I'm looking for that thing that's going to feel exciting every day, all day. And that's just not the way human nature works.
Yeah.
It's not the way dreams work. So that I just wanted to say before we get into the episode is to really maybe feel into what it would really feel like, to be living that dream and know that it's going to have both sides to it. It's going to have that feeling of satisfaction, of feeling like you're on path. And it's also going to have days where you feel like, why am I doing this? Or this is really hard, or I don't want to do this anymore.
Or an incredible amount of fear. I always talk about, I never wanted to be in front of a room. And in my early years, after I had been learning and doing things, and then I had to get in front of a room because I had something to say. And that's the way you shared information at that point, right? We didn't have all these things like Zoom and all these different things. But for years, and still to this day, I'm scared when I get up in front of people. It's never anything that I want to do. Yeah. Some people love it. Yeah, they love it. You're more comfortable getting up in front of people.
Mostly, but there are other things that scare me.
Right. But then I started doing it. And then, like I said, it was, I had something to say and something I wanted to share. And so I did that and traveled for 15 years and did it and stepped through that fear every weekend and went for it. Because at the end of the day, I felt tired, but I felt more like myself and I felt more alive. And I love the results of helping people because that's really, for me, it's about the thing of making a difference in people's lives. And that could have been in a lot of different areas.
Yeah. 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 So another misconception there is that the fear is going to go away, or you're just going to feel totally confident, never question yourself again. And as we've said before on the podcast, we work with very successful women, many of them who still struggle with self-doubt. That's one of the biggest things they say. No matter how successful they become, of course, they become more confident. But when it comes to the bigger dreams, then that's where the fear comes in, and that's part of how you know you're growing.
Yeah. That part of being vulnerable and really sharing something. Yeah. That can be a product, that can be a service, but doing something that feels a little bit more connected to your heart and what lights you up.
Yeah. So whether you're stepping into or desiring to step more into a dream that makes you want to get up in the morning in terms of a career, or it's more, hey, I'm doing something I really love and I want that bigger dream or that next project. We want to talk a little bit about, of course, about the how. Like, how do you start to get clear on? Because most people have a lot of different ideas, right? They're thinking, which one? or they're not even sure where to begin. So what are some ways they can start to reflect, or some questions, Gigi?
Well, I always tell people to start writing down all the ideas you have, because, I'm a visionary, and for years I just wrote down all these different things because I would feel so frustrated because I had so many ideas and I didn't know what to take action on first. And then I just lived in this frustration. And Makena, you helped me a lot with this as we started working together, because then it was, no, we have to finish this thing before we can do this thing. And so that really helped me. And through the years too, even earlier on, before we worked together, I did start to see that things have a timing. And so I would write them all down and then pick and choose to see what I wanted to take action on, And so it was more of a conscious choice. And then the other thing is, did you have a dream when you were young? Was there something that you really wanted to do? A lot of times there are pieces in what you want to do as a young person that is your passion, Because what we're looking at here is we're looking for pieces of the puzzle.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think that really leads us into another misconception I want to talk about, which is this idea that there's this one thing, right? Yeah. People think in terms of their purpose, in terms of their bigger dream, and, stepping into that they're going to find what it is. Yeah. And it's going to be this moment in time. Yeah. And everything's going to be clear, and they're never going to have, question themselves again, or wonder, or feel confused. And it's just not the way it works, right? So tell me a little bit more about the pieces of the puzzle. I know we've talked about this on the podcast, but in case someone hasn't heard that, what do you mean by that?
Well, I look at it, they're a piece to the puzzle. As I've grown my career and my business and what I've done, we shared this before, but like with my retreats, early on, I started doing retreats for women. And then I wanted to add more of an element of, I remember at one point, like, I love the whole Asian and Japanese. I was like, how could I do that? And then at one point I was like, oh, I could put those in retreats. If I really love it, then it would probably be really great for the women that work with me. And so I started like making my retreats around a topic. We had the Arts of a Woman, the Japanese one. And so these were ideas that would flow through my head all the time. And I might not actualize an idea for 2-3 years, maybe 4 years. But I had it written down, and I would start to see, where does that fit into the puzzle that I'm building? Early on, when I wanted to travel with my kids and I wanted them to be part and go to other cultures, same thing. That didn't happen overnight. That took trying it a couple of times, you guys being homeschooled, setting up that you were getting some kind of education. So those were pieces of my puzzle of growing the life and the business that I really loved and wanted to do.
This podcast is another great example, because I wanted to start a podcast for years. I was like, we need to start a podcast. We need to start a podcast. And we, I would jot down ideas, or I wrote like an intro at one point that I didn't end up using. And I think it was probably 3 years or something before we actually were like, okay, now is the time. And similarly with the book, right? It's like, it's gone through multiple iterations, and the version that we're going to write right now, which will be the final version, it feels so aligned. It's like, oh, this is the version that's supposed to be out there. And that can be that can be uncomfortable for people, I think, to sit in. It depends on the kind of person you are, right? But for some people, it's like, especially me, I'm like I want to get this thing done type of person. And it can be really uncomfortable to sit in the dreaming, the waiting, the researching. We're going to talk about that as really being the first stage. And then waiting for that timing when it is like, okay, now is the time. It's interesting though, because for someone like me, that's really uncomfortable. But then I also see other people who I think the fear is that if they don't, I don't know what it is. Like if they don't do it now, they might not do it or something, which is true. You might not.
Yeah.
That's a tough one to get comfortable with.
Yeah.
I love maybe this is something we could share around that which is the ideas journal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So like I said, I have to do this, or had to do it a lot years ago, of just writing every idea that came to my mind and putting it down to paper or on my computer, because there was something about taking it from here to putting it to paper that made me feel like it was safe. And I think this is visionaries. We feel like our ideas aren't safe unless something happens with them, right? And like they're going to be forgotten and somebody else is going to do it and see, we should have done it. That's our thing.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is I write down, and now I tell people to either get a journal or to write that down. And then I can scan through and see at certain times what I want to pick up and what feels like really aligned at this moment. Or I feel like I could do, or I could put into a project that I'm working on. And it's just a really fun way. It's like a creative journal, you know?
Yeah, I do this in like notes on my phone. So the notes app on your phone, because you have that on your computer and your phone. And then I feel like I'm not going to lose it. And I will say that for me over the years, we were talking about this a little bit before we recorded, like when I was in my former career, before I stepped into coaching, before I took a big risk and learned to follow through on something and bet on myself, and you really supported me in that, to go for it, I think I would have been more in fear that like, I'm never going to do these things because I hadn't ever taken those kinds of risks.
Yeah.
Yeah. But because I really did at some point, and for some of you listening, you may be at this point where you're like, I have been sitting with a lot of ideas or have all these things in the back of my head. And that's where sometimes hiring a coach or getting support or having some way that you really go out, we'll talk about creating a project and going for something, even if it doesn't turn out to be the thing, you build trust in yourself that you will go for it and you will try it. And so now that I've done that in this area, now it's like, this has become fun for me to have different ideas about projects I might want to do or directions I might want to go in my life. I have lots of different ideas. And instead of being frustrated or down on myself for not doing them right away, I kind of think of it as this like dance with the universe, with God or the universe. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like I get curious about it. I'm like, I wonder if that one's going to happen, or I wonder when this one will happen, or you know, some of them I might end up disregarding at some point and deciding it's not something I want to put my time and energy into. And then other ones, there's a timing, like you said, and the time does come to go, okay, now it's time to go all in.
Yeah. And I like that. It is like a dance, you know, and sometimes people get so hard on themselves, or they're worried they're going to fail. You know, if they fail, it means all these things. And like you said, when we talk about the project idea, I think that just eliminates a lot of that. And you do almost have to think of it as just a practice and a fun experiment, because you learn so much about yourself. And I always tell people, once you do the project, then you really see, is this something I really want to do? Because a lot of times people find out, no, that's not really the direction I want to go. And then it's out of your head and you have more brain space for new ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. So there's kind of stages to this process when you are exploring what is that bigger dream, or maybe you have multiple dreams, and which one do you really want to put your energy into? And so the first stage we call gathering information. Can you talk a little bit about that? stage, Gigi?
Yeah, we just talked to someone and we told her, she's looking at some ideas and to get out there and research along the lines of the type of things she wanted to do, or people that you really find fascinating, or a product that you really, really love and you're thinking about doing a product. And then you have to get out there and you have to do your homework in terms of just research. And then write down ideas and dream and think, if I did this, and I always say, look and see what other people are doing, look what really resonates, and then look what you would do differently, because you get a lot of clarity from doing that. You start to get your style or what you want to do, because so much of the time, that's the other thing, is we have it in the back of our head and we don't know how to get to it. And that's where, like you said, when you have a coach or you have somebody that can bring that out in you, then it starts to spark your ideas and you go, oh, I could do this. And so that's the way you start. And then
ideate, basically, and like you're saying, writing down your ideas. And if you're someone that, again, you could put a time period around this if you wanted. You could say this is for 90 days or something like that. I'm going to really be in the ideating stage, exploring different ideas, doing the research, and then I'm going to really take action on something.
Yeah.
And this is where the kinds of things we've talked about in previous episodes, and I don't know the exact episodes off the top of my head, but we can link to some of them in the show notes, where we really talk about following your aliveness and your curiosity and how to sort of explore. Those are really great skills and tools to help you in this gathering information and dreaming stage.
Yeah. See the moments where you feel the most alive, the most inspired, and write those down.
Yeah. And then step 2 or stage 2 that we've talked about before, but it's so important. It's such a powerful way to approach this, is to create a project.
So, you want to share about that, Makena? Talk about that one.
Yeah, a project is, you always say, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So it's really taking one idea that has the most energy and that you really see, like, I would take action on this one, right? Because if you're not going to do it, then it's not the right one, or if this doesn't feel like the time. So you go out of all these different ideas, what would be a project I could do to try this on? So let's see, I'm trying to think of an example of something I've done this with. Can you think of anything, Gigi? I mean, it could be if you're writing a book, then you start writing, right? You say, maybe you're not going to write the whole book at first, but you're going to write this much time each day for a certain period of time, or you're going to write some essays or something, or some social media posts, or whatever it is for you. You create some sort of project around that to go, does this have legs? Does it have energy? Is it something I really want to invest my time into? So that beginning, middle, and an end could be a time period, with certain things you're going to do within it. Or it could actually be saying, okay, I want to start this, we'll use our industry. I want to start this coaching business. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to, again, first you research and everything else. And then you say, I'm going to create a simple coaching program, and I'm going to lead 3 people through it, maybe at a beta rate or something like that, and see, is this the direction that I really feel excited and inspired to continue? Or is it not? Maybe at the end you go, actually, that's not really it. I want to do this other piece of things.
Yeah, it's funny. I think about it when you're talking, I did this with the power couples, right? I hadn't done anything with that for years. And so again, it was on my list. I wanted to do a project. So I created a project, and 2 years ago, did a week-long retreat in Jamaica, and it was so much fun. And the couples got so much value that I thought, I really want to do a year-long project with that. And so I just created that, and I'm starting that in September. And that, again, came out of an idea that's been sitting on my, list for years. And then taking that project that was just a week long and seeing, first of all, is it going to create value? Did the people get value? Did I enjoy doing it? Is it something where I really feel I can put myself into? And I was like, absolutely. So it made me grow. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a methodology you've been teaching and coaching and working with for decades, the secrets of power couples, but you hadn't really gone out with that brand on its own to do something in a long time. And so that retreat was the first project.
Yeah.
And then from there you built into this other and also created curiosity. Yeah, that's such a great example. And I like that example too, because it makes me think about something I say sometimes, which is sometimes these things need time to like fully bake in us. Yeah. And you don't want to do that forever. But this is something, again, you had been teaching with this methodology and coaching with it for a long time, but it needed time before the timing came and it was fully baked for you to go out there, create this retreat, create this program. And now is that time. So sometimes that helps me with the relaxing around the timing of things, is to go like, that book might still be writing itself in me, or this might still be preparing itself, or somehow things need to line up in the world and the universe for me to go fully out and say, now is the time for me to take on this project. And sometimes through taking a project, I'll say this last thing, you'll get the reflection of, is now the time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is my pieces of my puzzle is that, relationship work was my work for 15 years. And my books were published around that. That's what I taught, but it was for women mostly, right? For many, many years. I taught that for 15 years. And then I created a man's version. I did workshops for men. And then we wrote the book that was published in Europe, What Women Won't Tell Men. And so I had been putting together my pieces of my puzzle, and now they came together in terms of just working with couples. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've talked a lot about timing, but I think there's a couple of other pieces here to touch on. So one thing is, I want to talk a little bit about shiny object syndrome, because this is something that I come across sometimes with people, is that they have so many different ideas and they jump from idea to idea. So they might take that idea of a project or something too far, where it's like they almost don't stick with something long enough to see, or you said they use it sometimes even to distract themselves. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you see people that are super creative and, again, worried. I think visionary people, even with their businesses, I work with very successful people, and you watch them do this, like, even though they've got something going, it's successful, they can't focus. They keep on wanting to go create this or do this new thing or get this new thing. And what happens is then when I see it a lot of times, it just waters down what they're doing. And the main thing I see that happens is it just makes their life so difficult. It just waters down, and they're so stressed.
And they're pulled in so many different directions.
They're just pulled in so many different directions, where, getting something and getting it going well and really, really doing it well, again, they can start those other things, a year from now or whatever, and still have balance in life. Because that's the other thing that, comes in, is it creates then a lack of balance in their life.
I'll quote you, which is, you can do it all, but you can't do it all at once.
Yeah.
And that's something we say to our clients a lot, because people have that in them sometimes of like, well, I want to do this thing and I want to do that thing. And what about this? And, if I don't do that, then it might not happen or whatever. And it is that thing of sitting back, again, really seeing what has the most energy and is now the time. And like you said, and for someone, so that's, often with very successful people who have a lot of different businesses and stuff, but also with people who are maybe at a stage in their career where they're not fully maybe earning at the level they want to be earning, or they're not totally, what would you say, kind of stable in what they're doing, then that's not always the time to be jumping around, trying a bunch of different things, because they need to first get really,
stable.
Something that's working. Income coming in, stability. And that gives them a kind of confidence too. And then from there, from that confidence and that grounding, then they can pick, okay, what's that next piece?
What's the next thing? Yeah.
to add into the puzzle.
Yeah.
That's super important. Let's see. We talked about if I don't go for this now, I might not do it.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about belief, Gigi. When it comes to going for a bigger dream, a dream that makes you want to get up in the morning. We said a lot of people struggle with self-doubt or fear or lack of belief in themselves. So what would you say to that person?
Well, you know, especially when we're talking about projects, is that you really have nothing to lose, you know? So it's that stepping off and just having the courage. And if it's messy, it's messy. And if it doesn't go, it doesn't go. I've had projects fail completely. Oh my gosh. And they say, you know, the faster you fail, then the sooner you're going to succeed. And I really believe that when it comes to like these project kind of things. Now, when it comes to setting up a whole business and going for it, making it this big, that's a whole different thing. You have a lot to lose when you do that.
Yeah.
And so that's why I highly encourage, I don't care who it is, that they do a project first. And, you know, it has a beginning, middle, end, and then they step back and go, okay, did this work? Is this what I want to go for? And if so, then how do I approach this, and what worked and what didn't work in this project when I build my business? Now, you can't always do that. Sometimes people have to go to market fast, right? If there's an idea, but we're talking about generally, right? So,
and something I want to touch on there is something you've helped me do so much, and I know that we help our clients do so much of the time, is to really look at, is this idea, this project, this business, whatever it is it building you into the life that you really want? You know, a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, if you really go for this, is it the way you want to be spending your time? Does it make the kind of money you want to be making? Is it the lifestyle you want? Because so often I think this is where if people don't take that time that we talked about in the beginning of researching and dreaming and then trying a project, is they have what we call good ideas, lots of good ideas. Can you talk about what we mean by a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know even how to describe it, but you can, boy, when somebody does it, you can feel it and sense it immediately, right? It's like, I could do this or I could do that. And you can just feel there's no investment in it. So it's just these ideas, people see this or see that, and they think it's a good idea. We all have those, right? We say, oh my gosh, I could have done such and such. Somebody did it. But there, you can sense and feel in the person, there's no buy-in to it. It's just a good idea. It's just something fleeting moment. Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of times people go with those good ideas and then they end up 10 steps down the road and they're like, wait a second, right? This is, or they go with what somebody outside of them said they should do, or people, you know, whatever it is, that's often how people get to a point in their lives and they kind of look around themselves and they go, wait a second, this isn't really what I thought it would be. So it's something to be aware of when you are in the dreaming. That's why we teach people how to have this awareness of their vitality and their energy and their aliveness, but also, you know, when we work with them, we help them connect that, but also the longer term, like what is this leading into? And is that in alignment with really what you want and what's right for you? Sometimes that's hard to see for ourselves, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Need an outside person. It's hard for you and it's hard for me. Yeah, we go for each other all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely need support with that.
Yeah, and the belief too, I think, just to tie back to that for a moment, is like we said before, is the fear doesn't necessarily go away. It will get less, but it's getting comfortable with that. Sometimes it's finding believers, people who do believe in you and will cheer you on along the way, and just knowing that, you know, confidence comes with time and practice, and also with it being the right thing. So that's where when you do a project, you'll see, oh, wait a second, I thought that I would love this, or I thought that I'd be good at this, and it's really not, you know, the direction for me. And that's valuable information. So, so it is this, it's a little complex stepping into a dream that makes you want to wake up in the morning, right?
Why everybody's not doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, wow, this is a lot of different pieces here. It's not like, oh, we figured out that dream. That's how we all wish it was. We're like,
right.
Figured it out. It was this light bulb moment. I stepped into it. It was easy. It succeeded. And I never had to worry about it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think just to say that this is an evolutionary process that lasts a lifetime.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a great way to grow, you know, because you also see people who get stuck and won't take the risk or just go and they're just not really happy with what they're doing, you know. And that's the beautiful thing we have these days is we have options, which is amazing. You know, that was different 30 years ago or 35 years ago to the degree that we have that now. So, so it's so important to, if you do have the dream, to, like we said, get in there, do some research and try something. It can even be like a, you know, in our world, a day-long workshop or a half a day or you know, a masterclass online or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great point, though, is that there are people who are, and you will know if you're listening, if you're in this place, that you do feel stuck or you do feel out of alignment. Like you're on a road that's maybe paralleling the road you're supposed to be on, but it's not quite it, or it's way the heck on the other side of the map. And you'll know that from the way that you feel. Of course, again, it's not that every day you're going to feel incredible when you're on path, but you will feel that sense of, oh, okay, I'm on path. I'm moving in the direction I want to be moving. If you don't feel that way, then this is the roadmap. This is the first steps to begin to move more in that direction. And as someone that you've really guided and mentored, Gigi, and I know many of our clients feel this way as well, is there is this, it's sort of like once you step onto that path and you learn the skill set to continue evolving and growing and seeing what else brings you alive, and then bringing those elements in, it does become like a dance. It becomes like a dance, or like a, I don't know an unfolding, you know, it's like, oh, okay, the next unfolding of my life, the next piece, the next dream. And there are times that are more just, you know, kind of writing out what you've created so far. And then there are times where you really see the next piece and you stretch for that. But it is a very different flavor of living. I will say that than when I was completely feeling stuck and off track. So that is absolutely true.
Yeah. So get out there and pursue your dreams.
Yes. And if you have any questions, as always, you can email us at support@wayofthemuse.com if you have topic ideas for the podcast. And if you have someone in your life that, you know, would love to hear this or needs to hear this, please share it with them. Just if you go on whatever podcast platform you're listening to, there should be a little share button, an icon. You can copy the link and send it over to them. So thank you for being with us.
Thanks, you. Gigi. Thanks, McKenna.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's our episode for today, but let's not make it the end of our love story. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and think of some women in your life you'd love to share it with. And if you want to learn more about our events and programs, visit wayofthemuse.com. See you next time.